U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris defended the Biden administration's record on the southern border and illegal immigration during a televised interview. Harris also told CNN that she would sign bipartisan border bill to strengthen border security.
When you first ran, there was a debate. You raised your hand when asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally, and there should be consequence. And let's be clear, in this race, I'm the only person who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations who traffic in guns, drugs, and human beings. I'm the only person in this race who actually served a border state as Attorney General to enforce our laws, and I would enforce our laws as president going forward. I recognize the problem.
Well, Harris's running mate, Tim Walz, was asked about how he and his wife used in vitro fertilization to start their family and reproductive rights in the U.S.
I spoke about our infertility issues because it's hell, and families know this. And I spoke about the treatments that were available to us that had those beautiful children there. That's quite a contrast in folks that are trying to take those rights away from us. And so I think people know who I am. They know that record. They've seen that. I've taught thousands of students. I've been out there. And I won't apologize for speaking passionately, whether it's guns in schools or protecting of reproductive rights. The contrast could not be clearer between what we're running against. The vice president's position on this has been clear. And I think most Americans get it if you've been through that. I don't think they're cutting hairs on IVF or IUI. I think what they're cutting hairs on is an abortion ban and the ability to be able to deny families the chance to have a beautiful child.
Well, Harris was also asked about changing her position on the process of fracking to produce oil and gas. In 2020, she said that she would ban it. Harris says that while her position has changed, her values have not, and that the U.S. can now address climate change without needing to ban fracking. Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump spoke about Harris's interview at a town hall in Wisconsin.
And I just saw her, Chelsea, she was sitting behind a desk doing this interview. And I said, Dana Bash, you could make yourself big tonight. All you have to do is be fair. I haven't seen the questions, but they gave out a sample. In fact, she's going to be on later on tonight with a taped. It was a taped. We're doing it live. Why are we doing it live and she's doing it taped? But
that's right. He's real.
But she was sitting behind that desk, this massive desk, and she didn't look like a leader to me, I'll be honest. I don't see her negotiating with President Xi of China. I don't see her with Kim Jong-un like we did with Kim Jong-un.
Well, last night was the first time both Harris and Walz held a joint interview since accepting their Democratic nominations. For reaction to last night's interview, we're joined live by Jack Cunningham from the University of Toronto's Bill Graham Center for Contemporary International History. Thanks a lot for joining us, Mr. Cunningham. First off, let me just get your overall take on last night's interview as it relates to Canada and Canadian policy as well.
Well, in terms of Canadian policy and in terms of politics more generally, I think Harris and Walz had to establish themselves as reasonably plausible, acceptable to mainstream Americans in a way that will reassure Canadians and others that she has a reasonable chance of becoming president. Let's keep in mind that Donald Trump is a known quantity both here and in the United States. Nothing that he says or does, no matter how outrageous, is going to change the way that either his supporters or his opponents view him. Vice President Harris is a less well-known quantity. She has a problem that all incumbent vice presidents have of establishing a separate political identity. And I think she did that last night.
What are your thoughts on her policy regarding immigration and the southern border? And I ask that with respect to our border with the U.S. because, you know, let's face it, I think there were some deaths when immigrants were trying to cross through the Mohawk territory into the U.S. from Canada.
There were, and I think she will be somewhat more responsible and realistic than Mr. Trump if she gets in. But she is, I think, serious about border security. one of the strongest points she made was that Trump deliberately vetoed compromise border control legislation because he wanted an issue. He didn't want a solution. So if she is elected, I think we will probably see essentially a continuation of the Biden administration's approach on border security.
And also, I think we have to talk about NAFTA, or what happened to NAFTA, and how the role of that in this upcoming election on both sides. What are your thoughts?
Well, we haven't seen a fleshed out position from her on trade or on the revised NAFTA in particular. But we should keep in mind that since the Biden administration took office, it has actually been relatively protectionist by the standards of recent history. Nowhere near as bad as the Trump administration was, but we are, if she gets in, likely to see something less than the sort of generally open border we'd hoped for. We are going to see continued squabbles over trade, but that still leaves her vastly preferable to Trump, who's talked about imposing a 10% tariff on all foreign goods. If he could enact that, and he would have trouble getting it through Congress, it would be absolutely devastating to Canada's economy.
Okay. Jack Cunningham from the University of Toronto's Bill Graham Center for Contemporary International History. Thank you for your time and insight this morning. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Bakari. Good to be with you.